Hey everyone, back here with another video. This is a little different than my normal videos. Today I actually want to talk about the gunplay in the state of Rust currently. Nah, I'm just joking. I actually want to speak to the changes that happened around New Year's for the painting UI, and some of the things and issues that have been brought up to myself from fellow artists, some things that I've noticed myself as well, and maybe get a dialogue and a conversation going and be able to visually show you guys at Facepunch some of these issues that we have, and maybe even some suggestions for other things that can be added to the game. But I want to start off first by just saying thank you to Rohan. I know you were very involved with all the changes and making all these things possible for us, so I just want to say thank you, and also just thank you to the Facepunch team. You guys have been really amazing to us in the creative world of Rust, and I just really appreciate you guys, and I really don't want this to come off as like we're ragging on things, because we're not. We just really love it, and we just have some suggestions and changes that will improve the UI and the painting in Rust even more than you already have. So just want to kind of get that out there and say thank you. So I'm gonna go through a list here of different things that we've had going on and some things that have been brought up to me. First, I'm going to start with the painting UI. So these are some changes and suggestions maybe to the painting UI itself that we've compiled together. There's a few different things that were changed when the new change came in, and I think there's also some things that could also be improved with it. And I just kind of want to show you a few of those things right now. First is the scaling. So I'm a player that likes to play on 0.5 for the scale of the UI, and it used to be that the painting UI used to scale with that as well. Since the change, the UI no longer scales, and this is all very big and in our face, which, you know, for some people, if they have that choice, it would be great. But also for people like myself, I find it a little bit too much, and I would like to actually focus more on the painting itself and have room for that, and would just like to have the UI itself scale with the slider of the game's UI. Second is something that a lot of people have brought up to myself as well, is that some people are left-handed and some people are right-handed, and it would be really nice if there was an option to have the ability to have this on the left or right. So having all these tools over on the left for some people would be better, and I think it is too like an accessibility type of thing that would help some people, especially some people with drawing pads and such. It just makes it easier and more convenient when using the system there. Another thing that has been brought up is having maybe presets for these different brushes. So say like there was something that you commonly went back to. It would be nice if, say, you could save a preset and have just a preset you could click that you could go back to a certain brush with a certain spacing and a certain opacity. It would make it a lot easier to just kind of click around and go through, and make it nicer for just being quicker with the painting itself, instead of having to come back, maybe type in a number or hunt the different type of size or spacing or whatever it is through the UI. Another thing that has been brought up is it would be awesome to maybe have a fill tool. Maybe something that we could click, and if I wanted to change this background real quickly or fill in a certain area or color, I could just do that by clicking, select a color, and then fill. I know these are kind of wishful thinking and it's not needed, but just I would like to kind of get all these things out here. Another thing that's kind of wanted and quite needed is a straight line tool. it's quite hard to draw a perfectly straight line. You have to be very, very careful and very, very still with your movement. And it's definitely doable, but it would be really nice if we could just click a point, and then a line gets drawn in between those 2 points. And then another third thing would be having a text tool. Another tool in the toolbar here that for making signs, labeling boxes. I know this would be widely used by everybody that plays the game and uses signs. It'd be really nice just to be able to select the text tool, type in something, and then have that applied. And a couple more things I would like to tag on to this, but that are not needed, but would be appreciated, is some kind of way to be able to, with values, type in or see the color that you've selected. I know a lot of people that use certain palettes or certain shades would really appreciate this, and being able to maybe type in a certain color and get that right away instead of blending or mixing to that would be really nice. And also just seeing what color you're working with. And then another thing, again, these are kind of wishful thinking, but having like a previously used colors, or like a little bar that you could create your own colors and mix them, and then have them as like retained colors in a little box that you could select again. Most of the time we have to do like a little box off the side, do our little color mixing and everything, and then we can have the colors that we pick from. But it would be awesome if we just had it maybe in the UI itself here, where we have these previous used colors, or again colors that we kind of defined. The next topic I want to talk about is actually the brush size itself. Currently there's a few different issues around having the brush size with a maximum of 32, and also when it's at 1.0 in size. So currently 32 is unfortunately just not large enough to do big shadows and shading. It takes quite a bit of work to paint in a surface, and if we had a tool that maybe went to even the size of the canvas edge to edge, or slightly smaller than that, it would be greatly appreciated. I know many people want something like this. Even if we didn't get the fill tool, something like this would really help with just getting in a lot of color and covering the canvas very quickly. A lot of the times I have to sit here and color over the whole canvas like this and get through this, and it's not a big deal, but it definitely would be appreciated that we have bigger brushes, so that when we're doing shading or certain things, we're not having to make many different strokes with it. The next problem is under 2.0 in the size actually causes issues. So I'm going to put it at 2 right now, 2.0, and you can see when I draw a line, it's constant, and so it allows us to draw these thin straight lines, and it's great. But as soon as I go under this, it starts creating this effect where it skips. It doesn't actually draw the full line, and it's very strange because you can see sometimes it's okay, and then sometimes it just cuts out, and so you can't really count on the line. And I've even noticed, like, the faster I go, sometimes it's worse, but you can see it doesn't even line up to certain areas. There's real no rhyme or reason when it does it or not. I don't know if it's because I'm shifting up in the pixels or not. But it's definitely an issue that's come about, and it's made basically under 2.0 for size, not very usable. Another thing that we've noticed is, say like I use the block, the square brush tool here, and I select a color. If I put a block here and I'm moving my mouse to the right, I'm going to try to redo this here, and these ones are the same size, but ever so slightly, if I was to move it, I'm trying to get it to work here. Sometimes this, there we go. So you can see the bottom edge is aligned, but it actually drew a box that's a slightly ever so smaller, probably 1 pixel here, than the last brush stroke. And so it's a very strange thing. Sometimes the box is the right size, and sometimes it's not quite the right size, and I don't know why this happens. It doesn't seem like it's like a positional thing on the surface, but just like some random occurrence that happens with it. The next thing I would like to talk about is the opacity with the brushes. I think this might be a solution too for maybe some of the weirdness that I'll explain with the softest brush. But it'd be really nice to have lower opacity beyond what we currently have with these brushes on the right here. A lot of the times we want to be using these to do some kind of shading or some kind of effects, and unfortunately just right now this is a little too much to be able to do really soft shading with these brushes. Another thing is just a slight difference. I just went 0.01 up in the opacity, creates a drastic change in the amount of opacity, and basically after a certain point there is no difference in the bar in terms of the opacity and what you're seeing. So if we had more variability at the lower end, plus the ability to go even lower than this opacity already, would be really helpful. Sometimes it's a stylistic choice by many to use the square brush, and to be able to have a lower opacity, kind of like how it's trailing off to, would be amazing, and definitely something that's very useful, and would solve a lot of problems with the brushes. Okay, so the soft brush. This has actually been a big sticking point and really one of the main reasons I'm making this video. Unfortunately, this soft brush, the lowest opacity brush here, acts in very strange ways that many of us don't quite understand. I'm going to put it on its highest setting here and actually one second, I'm going to color in the background completely white, and it's easier to see this way. Some of the weirdness that happens. We're actually been calling it an experimental brush because it almost seems like it pulls color and moves color in a certain way, almost like a wet brush, and it just is not predictable, and it's definitely not usable in certain situations, as you cannot count on it. So currently right now I have the opacity all the way up. Spacing doesn't quite matter with it, but I'm going to turn down, and you can see here it creates this tube effect where there's a certain color on the inside and then it goes out to a gradient and almost gets darker on the edges. And I'm using white right now on top of white, so you would imagine that I wouldn't actually even be able to see anything, but I'm creating these weird gradients and tools, and there's even certain purple hues and green hues that are starting to come through, which I would not expect from the brush itself. Another thing that happens with it is with opacity. So when I'm drawing with the 1.0 opacity, the brush is this size here, you can see. But as soon as I start changing the opacity size, the brush starts to get smaller. And when I really get down there, the brush size itself is quite small, that it's almost like I'm drawing with a thin line. This is not expected, as the size is still the same, and it makes shading with this brush very difficult, because now I have to go in and shade, and then what happens is I start getting this banding with the colors and this weird blend that's just not something that can lead to soft shading and soft shadows and all the uses you would have for a brush like this. It's actually hindered many of the people that did portrait photos especially in black and white, because you can no longer shade back over yourself and kind of paint out the colors. It creates these bands, and it just is not as useful as it was before. So either if we had the ability with these ones to have a lower opacity, because this works great, it actually, as you can see, I'm painting white on white with this and I don't see it, and it works exactly how you would expect it to. The size of the brush stays the same no matter what the opacity is, so that all kind of works to a degree, as you can see there, as expected. But if we had the lower opacity, even maybe in this softer brush, it would be better for the type of shading and stuff that we do. This is more explaining kind of the what I mean when I say it acts like a wet brush when you're using the softest brush. You can see when I pull across these, there's definitely a different effect depending on the color underneath it. And you can see in here we're pulling in actually like purple tones, and definitely some weird different colors. And then as we get into the white, now I'm seeing greens on the edges, and then into here it's almost like I'm seeing blue again, or like a gray or something like this on the edge. And so sometimes when you're using this, it doesn't quite blend or make the colors that you would expect it to. And it's definitely can throw a wrench sometimes when you're trying to shade in certain areas, when you get these other colors and tones that pop through. So it's definitely strange, and that's why we call it the experimental brush. This is something I want to add on to this section that after I shared this video with the community, they kind of brought to my attention and I wasn't actually aware of, is that actually in the medium opacity brush, there is some weirdness that also goes on and occurs at the very lowest opacities. So I'm actually going to draw with black here, and if I zoom in, I'm actually seeing a bunch of different colors show up too as well. There's this band on the outside that's kind of like a bluey gray. And then there's almost like a green tone to the center area, and then obviously this black. So I don't know if this is due to the way these brushes work and the way they trail off with the feathering and everything like that, but there's definitely some weirdness going on. If I do it with a blue here, you can see it actually creates like a green on the outside, and so some people have called this like a bruising effect. But it's definitely strange, and it only occurs on certain tones. So this is actually an in-between color that I've created. I'm going to color in an area here with the peachy color on the right here, and you'll see when I use the black, it's not quite as prominent as you can see, but there's definitely some green tones there. And then I'm going to use the blue as well here, and definitely it's not as prominent again as what you see when you have these in-between tones and you're using these mixed colors with these brushes. So just something to take a note, and it's definitely something that's weird and strange that occurs with it, where on these mixed tones they don't quite look the same when you're using these low opacities. There's some weird color blending or mixing that's occurring with these brushes. Another thing that's kind of more of a wish than a need is rotation with the new splatter brushes. These are great for creating texture and adding different style to the paintings, but they are very predictable, and when you use it quite often, there's not quite enough rotation to the brush to break up the design of it. So we were hoping maybe if there was another slider or just a little bit more variability in it, so that it doesn't quite create this very patterned look that it has sometimes. it can kind of repeat things quite often, and then the texture is not as organic as you would hope. So if we could maybe have a slider to be able to change the rotation, or even if it just had a little bit more variability in it, that would be an awesome thing. The next thing I wanted to speak to is a couple of the weird bugs we found with a few of the items for painting on. The landscape and the portrait frame have this bug both, and I'll show you here now. They're both skewed in a weird way. This is skewed vertically and this one's skewed horizontally. So when I select a round tool here and I click a single dot, you can see it actually creates an oval that's elongated in the vertical sense. And if I do that the same thing over here on the portrait, when I click, you can see that it's skewed on the horizontal plane. Now this comes about when we also export these. The orientation of the picture and the skew of it is not what we see here. And so say if I make and paint a circle, so I'm going to go and try to paint a circle here, and then I export it. I'm going to show on screen right now. It's actually elongated and doesn't look exactly like what I'm seeing. And this is not a big issue, but it definitely makes it harder sometimes showing people the works from the raw exported files, and it would just be nice if they could match each other. What I'm assuming is maybe this needs more horizontal resolution and the landscape frame needs a little bit more vertical resolution to kind of compensate for that. The next thing is the spinner. Really appreciate you guys already fixing one of the things I mentioned the other day. I appreciate you, Ren. That's very, very kind of you guys. It's very awesome. So I'm going to go into Paint It, and now this is fixed, this orientation. But there's definitely a weirdness still with the export of this file. So I'm going to click export right now, and I'm going to show you on screen how it actually shows up in the top left quadrant of the export. I think this is maybe something from the old system that just is maybe carried over, but if we could use that full resolution we're seeing on here for the spinner, or if that could be adjusted so that that is centered in the image that we export, that would be really nice. And it's just some weird bug that we've noticed too as well with this system. So the neon signs, this is definitely something that's kind of semi underutilized, just because there's not as much control in the painting UI as we maybe would like. We do appreciate that when the painting update came through, we got a much finer small brush, and this has allowed us to do a lot more details and a lot more things with the signs. But it would be nice if we could have a little bit more size adjustability to be able to do certain details and certain things with the signs that we currently can't do. Secondly, it would be awesome to have much more color choice with the neon signs. Certain colors currently, like the green and blue, almost appear to be the same when the sign is on. The same thing with this blue and purple. So it'd be really nice if we had some more color choice and the ability to, do some more things with the signs than just what's available here. Beyond that, it would also be really nice if we could have like a black or even like a blank paint on the sign, where it'll allow us to paint out the lines from the previous frame. Sometimes when you're doing designs and everything, you don't want the previous frame showing through. And that can kind of create this weirdness where you see these two images where one's highlighted, one's not, when the sign's on. And it would just be nice to have the ability to kind of blank that out or kind of draw black or something like that so that it's not shown and you can have nice clean frames in between the frames. Now the third thing is technically not something to do with the Paint UI itself, but with the sign, is to have the ability to select a frame. It would be nice if there was, say, separate inputs on the electric, on the sign itself for the electrical, so I could call upon the 1 or 2 or 3rd frame. It would be really nice just for certain RP builds and electronic builds to be able to do that and be able to call upon a certain frame at a certain time. And then lastly, another wish of the community is with the spray cans. It would be awesome if we could have our own preset. Say you go in and you create a picture kind of like the pumpkins, or even the pattern boomer, where you could have your own spray and then have that as a saved preset that you could then spray on surfaces. Again, it's not something that's really big. There's definitely like a niche area in the art community where we do actually street graffiti and art with the paint can, and it's a lot of fun. But even just to be able to create like a custom logo or a signature or something like that that you could tag things with would be amazing for the art community. So I just kind of want to wrap up and just say thank you again. I really appreciate you guys. All these changes that you made were super appreciated. It's opened up art to another level, and I just love the direction you guys are going with, and I just hope this kind of explains and visualizes some of the problems that we're having, and maybe gives you some ideas or considerations to be able to take in and make the painting UI perfect. It's definitely super appreciated. So thank you guys. That's it for now for this video. Take care, everyone. Have a great day.